Today I'm delighted to have with me Faris, who is a quiet leadership coach. So when I heard that, I thought I've never heard of that before, and it definitely piqued my interest. So Faris, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start with, what is quiet leadership?
Yeah, good question. So what I mean by quiet in this context is introverts. And introvert is a person that gains energy when they're by themselves, and they lose energy when they're around stimulation. And the leadership piece, I know leadership is a very loaded word, and there's many types of leadership styles. And actually, if you Google the word leadership, and I've done that, you get thousands of different definitions. So I'm going to share with you what resonates with me. For me, leadership is not about rank, position, or title. Leadership is a choice, and it begins with self-leadership. Because I believe, how can you lead others if you can't lead yourself first? And self-leadership starts with self-awareness. And the way I maybe describe leaders are people that demonstrates what's possible. So for example, a mother that demonstrates to her kids what's possible, she is a leader. Or someone that listens, inspires, and empowers others. Could be a manager, a coach, a nutritionist. So my point is, it doesn't have to, because usually people, when they think of leadership, they automatically think of an organization and ranks. And my take, it's not about that. It's we're all leaders. And if we demonstrate what I just mentioned, those are signs of leadership.
So how do you define, so I find that very interesting to define, leadership in terms of energy. I really like that. So how do you define a good leader? Because I'm thinking you could be self-aware, maybe you're introvert, extrovert, doesn't matter. You might think you're a good leader. So what is good leadership? Is that, so if we're thinking in a business context, is that you're getting the results from your team, or how would you define that?
Probably, yeah. But if a leader demonstrates what's possible to the team by being courageous, doing things that others maybe are not courageous enough to do it, someone that really listens and hear what their team members are saying, she inspires them, empowers them, and also someone that unlocks their potential to become better. So they see someone with the potential and they help them grow and grow in the company, for example, if we're referring to a corporate setting. So that's the way I look at leadership. It's more doing more for others than for self. So yeah.
So do you think you're born a good leader? You're born with a certain amount of empathy and wanting to help and being compassionate? Or do you think that's something you can learn? Can you say, well, I want to lead, I want to be a leader. I want to work my way up this company. One day I want to be CEO of a big company. Let's say that's your dream as an example. Can you learn how to have empathy and be that kind of leader that wants to give?
Yeah. Definitely, I see it both ways. You can be you might be born with these traits naturally, but some people are not born with these traits. Then you can learn them. And how do you learn them? Is, from my perspective, is learning more about yourself, understanding who you are, what's your personality type, what are your key strengths, what are your values, what's your why? Why you wanna, for example, why you wanna climb the corporate ladder? Like what's the why behind that? Like saying to get money or get rich, that's not in my opinion, a very strong why. It needs to be something like deeper than that. So having that exploration and discovery and understanding yourself and learning some tools to be a better leader, then yeah, it's learned. And it's a mix of both, actually. You can be a natural leader, but at the same time, you want other tools and learnings to be a better person. We're always like work in progress.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That why is so important. So just rough estimate, I know you probably haven't done any research on it, but let's say a successful CEO, what percentage do you think they're successful in terms of they've got the status and the money? Let's say their why is purely external. I want to have money. It's ego driven versus, a CEO that's successful who got successful because he's that leader that has a great vision. He brings everyone along with him and has high EQ, all that stuff. What do you think the percentages are if we just had those two buckets in corporate America? Just put it out there.
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure about the percentage, but I see a mix of both. And to be honest, I don't like to like categorize people like wrong or bad or better or worse. So there's different types of leadership, as I mentioned. Like if you Google or look at different books, you'll have thousands of books on leadership with different styles. There's the servant leaders, there's quiet leadership. So there's different types. So some people could be the people that you're referring to, like their reason and their why is very superficial or external. It's about the money, status, it's ego driven. And many I've seen many leaders that are maybe successful in the corporate world or successful financially, and they have those traits. But it also depends on what's your definition of success. So if their definition of success is money and power and all that, that works for them. But if someone else, their success is more about helping others, living a balanced life, having time for their family, whatever they value, what's important to them. So maybe a question for leaders to ask before, in addition to the why, what's my definition of success?
Right. And what's the difference between being an introvert and an extrovert? Because I have people tell me, oh, I'm really introverted. And I look at their behavior going, really? You put that label on yourself? I don't see it, but I mean, that's how they feel. And that's how they label themselves. So what's the difference for you?
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, because I think there's a misunderstanding of what really introverts or an introvert means. So people get surprised because some people have the misconception an introvert is a shy person or antisocial, and that's not necessarily an introvert. That's shyness and introversion, they're different. So introversion is about where you gain and lose energy. So it's more about the energy. And shyness is about fear of negative judgment, fear of being in public. So it's different. There is an overlap. There's extroverts that are shy, and I've seen many, and there is shy introverts as well. But however, shyness is different. So yeah, the definition is not my definition. It's based on the psychologist who coined this term, Carl Jung. And the introvert extrovert piece is all about the energy. So introverts, they tend to get stimulated quicker than extroverts. That's why stimulating environments like, let's say, loud office or a networking event, it stimulates us much faster than extroverts. So our energy gets depleted fast, and then we want to retreat and go somewhere quiet to get energized. Extroverts are the opposite. This stimulation really gets them energized, and they want to even do more of it because they feel they get more energy from doing that.
So you mentioned networking, and that's key. And you know, our group is about networking, and that's why we do live events, because it's all about business and starting those relationships. So let's say you're an introvert and you're easily depleted energy wise. If you're in an environment where it's noisy, any tips on that would help someone that is an introvert, knowing I have to get that out there and meet people because it's part of my job, it's what I need to do? Any tips for them?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So since it's about the energy, so what I would usually recommend, and I apply this to myself, is having a good amount of energy before going to a networking event. So for example, let's say there's a networking event, let's say at 6 p.m. What I would do at 5 p.m., stop working, and from 5 to 6, for example, rest, be in a quiet place, get energized. So that's one thing, giving yourself time to energize before going. That's one. Two, meditation helps, which maybe goes hand in hand, or it could be by sitting by yourself quiet, you could also meditate. Third piece would be once you go to the event, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, once you go to the event, you go with a strategy or with a plan. So it's not about talking to every single person there, being strategic about it. So say, I don't know, you put a limit to yourself. Today, I want to network with 5 key people. Maybe you've done the research before, went to the meetup, let's say, website, and you know who's attending, and you have in mind a rough idea who you want to meet. You meet these 5 people, and that's enough for you. Then you spend there an hour and then leave. So you could approach it differently, more quality than quantity, more focused. So that's another tip. The third one is while you're there, and if you want to stay longer, take mini breaks. So maybe step out of the room, go to the lobby area or even the washroom, have 2 minutes in quiet, get your energy back, recenter, and go back again. That's the third one I would suggest. And that's what I do personally.
Oh, so you're one of those people. Is that why you got into quiet leadership?
Yeah, definitely. So I
Yeah.
didn't know I was like an introvert. I found out 8 years ago, and when I realized that I used to be in the corporate world, very fast paced, very loud, and my energy was depleted most of the time, all the time actually. And I thought there's something wrong with me. I used to go to like the doctor to check my blood, like do the blood work, see if anything wrong. There wasn't anything wrong. Then I discovered that the reason why I'm tired because I'm not giving myself those solitude time. I'm not sitting in a quiet place because I didn't know that. So once I understood what introversion means, it was a game changer for me. So that's why, yeah, I got into coaching introverts because I want to help others understand themselves.
So we know what your why and your mission is all about.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned earlier you could be a shy extrovert. So
Mm.
what does that look like?
So a shy extrovert is someone that wants the stimulation. They get energized from stimulation. And by the way, the stimulation piece comes from more of a science base. Like we are wired differently as introvert extroverts. The way the dopamine is get triggered is different from introverts and extroverts. So extroverts, they need more stimulation to get the dopamine, triggered, and for them to get. Um, so, for example, let's say an introvert gets a call and say, I don't know, you got promoted, and that's a great news. That stimulation could overwhelm us. But an extrovert, for example, that's something fun and they would enjoy and embrace at the moment. So the way we react to stimulation is different. So going back to your question, a shy extrovert would be a person that still get energized by stimulation. However, their shyness can come in the way because they have a fear of social disapproval, negative judgment. So, so probably they won't go networking, believe it or not, because they have that fear of social disapproval. But they need to be stimulated. So they can be stimulated by different ways. Maybe not through public speaking, maybe not by going to networking events, maybe just being with their friends and small circle.
That's very interesting. So what sort of other introvert myths are there out there that you can dispel?
Mm, yeah. So the shyness, that's one which we spoke about. That's a common one I hear all the time. The second one is that introverts are the minority. What do you think is the percentage of introverts to extroverts?
If I had to guess,
Mm,
I would say 35, 40% are introverts.
close, yeah. Depending on the study, more or less between 45 and 50%. So that's huge. That's almost half the population. But for
Wow.
some reason, people think, yeah, introverts are the minority, and they're not. And the reason maybe people think that because people tend to there's a negative connotation to being an introvert. So many introverts, and I've done many focus groups with introverts and through my clients, they're almost ashamed of saying I'm an introvert. So they hide that piece. Yeah, either they hide it and they're ashamed of it, or they don't know. Like in my example, for example, 9 years ago, I didn't know. So maybe that's why we tend to think they're in the minority. The
So,
third myth. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
You want to speak about that percentage, or shall I go to the next point?
No, no, you can flesh it out.
Cool. The next myth that's common, that introverts are not cut out for sales positions, and that's a myth. There's many successful salespeople that are introverted, and there's study about that. Because if you think about sales, is about listening and understanding what the clients wants, their needs, having that empathy. I'm not saying extroverts don't have it, but I mean, since introverts, they have it and that comes naturally to them. So that makes them successful salespeople. There was a study done and published on Washington Post where they interviewed, and I don't know how they researched it, 4,000 salespeople, and they wanted to see who is better, introverts or extroverts at sales, and
Mhm.
the results were equal. So it doesn't matter if you're extrovert or introvert. you can be a great salesperson with different personality types.
Well, that's great information. I'm going to use that when I encourage people to get into sales.
Yeah.
So no matter who you are, how you label yourself as individuals, we always have strengths and weaknesses. And to your point, if you're aware of what they are, then you can, work on your weaknesses and progress through life. So what's
100%. I love that. We all have exactly like personality type, introvert, extrovert. It's just different personality types. It's not like one is better than the other, simply different. And the key is, to leverage your own natural strength and embrace it. And each one of us can bring to the table different skill set.
So as you mentioned, introverts, they're better listeners, and I think
Mm,
that is key in sales. So, the way I've done sales and I coach the sales team, it's, I always told my salespeople, when I was a sales manager, we had 300 different SKUs to sell, right? So
mm,
you go in, it's like you have to know what you have in your toolkit. Now you
mm.
listen to the business and what their pain points are, and they might just have one problem. They might have 8 others you can solve as well, but just start with one. So let them speak. Listen.
Exactly.
And then when they say, well, yeah, this is my biggest challenge, you don't even have to ask them that. Just listen
Mm,
and then
mm,
hone in on that one thing and tell them how you can solve that. And then start building a relationship, and gradually you can sell them more than one thing.
love
So,
it. Exactly.
right? Like it's
Hmm.
fairly easy. So given that we all have our strengths and weaknesses, so being an introvert, clearly research shows a great listener, so that's a huge
Hmm.
strength. Anything else that's a great strength as an introvert?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. The second strength, a common strength, is introspection. We're great at reflection. Usually, we need that time. Like for me, at least, I don't know, I need it once a day at least to be with myself for an hour. And during that hour, there's a big part of it, introspection and reflection. And why is that a strength? Is because introspection is a catalyst to innovation. When someone, it depends on the person, but there's so many studies, including Bill Gates spoke about that. Steve Jobs, although Steve Jobs is an extrovert, but they spoke about how their best ideas, they came when they were somewhere by themselves. So usually innovation comes in those environments. So introspection helps with that, and also introspection helps to understand ourselves better and understand others and understand the situation. So if there's a challenge and we're introspecting, reflecting on it, saying, all right, what worked yesterday? What didn't work? How did that meeting go? How can I improve it? So all these kind of questions help, so that I find it is a strength to have introspection and reflection.
So for extroverts now, like
Mm,
what would their strengths be? I think it would be obvious, but maybe not based on the research.
mm,
What would their strength and a weakness be for an extrovert?
mm. So usually I find the opposite. So for example, extroverts, they are good they're great actually at thinking on the spot. So let's say they're in a meeting and I don't know, someone asks them a question that they haven't prepared for, sorry. They can answer it. However, an introvert might struggle with that. And the reason for that, from a scientific point of view, the way we process information, like we need more time to process the information. So we're not good at thinking on our feet. So that's usually a strength for introverts is preparation or over preparation. Because when we're prepared, then when someone asks us, let's say, a question and we prepared, we've done the research, then we can answer. But if we haven't done the preparation and someone asks us something on the spot, we can find it challenging. But there's tips to that. So if, let's say, that happens, what an introvert can do is say, like, great question, let me reflect on it and get back to you, Arma, in 2 hours, for example. Or let me reflect on it and send you an email by end of day. So there's a way around it. But usually we don't like to be put on the spot. And so the strength for an extrovert is they're good at that. And that's an important strength and skill, right? To be spontaneous and can figure things out right away.
And what would be a weakness for an extrovert?
A weakness could be, although I don't like to call them a weakness, but yeah, I know what you're saying. It could be not listening. Many extroverts, and that's not intentional, because the way they're wired, they think out loud. So they process information by thinking out loud. So they speak as they're reflecting. So this means then less listening, and sometimes while they're talking, that means they're taking over some other quiet people in the room. So usually introverts, they get triggered, like I didn't get a chance to speak because extroverts they took over the discussion. But so usually what I do when I speak to introverts and extroverts at companies is to understand the differences. Once you understand the differences, then you know it's not personal. So when extroverts are taking over, it's not intentional they want to take over. That's how they think. They speak out loud. They speak their mind. Introverts, we're quiet and reflective. So it's not personal. Just understand the differences and decide or learn how to communicate with each other, knowing how each behave.
So when we communicate, a lot of people are guilty of, being focused on what their next question is, as opposed to really listening to the person in front of them. So would you say that then extroverts are more likely to do that?
Yeah, more
By
likely to do
extension?
that.
Yeah. And how
Yeah.
do we close the communication gap between introverts and extroverts? Like, what can we do to, I think, to your last point, if you are an introvert and feel, oh, I didn't get a chance to speak, if they're reminded that they know, oh, no, it's not personal, this is just their communication style, then there's a certain amount of empathy that might help them be more confident when they are communicating. But what else can we do to close that gap?
Yeah, great question, and thank you. Yeah, that what you shared is definitely one of the steps, the understanding. So first step is self-awareness and self-understanding, and the more we understand each other, the more we can create positive and productive environment for everyone. So what I usually share with like a few tips to introverts and extroverts. So for an extrovert, if they're dealing with an introvert, to give introverts time to think through a question or a problem. So don't put them on the spot, give them that chance. So let's say you're a manager and one of your team members is an introvert, for example, and you know that. So in a meeting, you could say, first brainstorming sessions probably not a good idea for introverts. And there's many studies now show that brainstorming in general is not effective for both, but for argument's sake, let's say for introverts, yeah, it's not, because we need time to do the thinking by ourselves. So let's say in a meeting, you're an extrovert and you want to help an introvert, and it's not about helping them actually. It's because you want to get the best out of introverts too. Because what if the introvert has great ideas that they're not sharing? So you want to hear them out too. So give them time to think through it. Say, guys, if you have any more ideas, email me by end of day, or let's regroup tomorrow morning. So that gives them a chance to think about it. So that could really one tip for extroverts to keep in mind. Another tip is to provide information prior to the meeting. Since they love preparation, give them, I don't know why I'm saying them, it's I'm an introvert. So give us information prior to the meeting. Say what's the meeting about, what kind of topics we're going to discuss. So that helps the introverts to prepare and come to the meeting prepared, which will, then they can add value to the meeting. A third, sorry, I'll stop here.
No, give us the third. Don't leave us hanging. Go ahead. I interrupted you. I might be an extrovert. I don't know.
By the way, there's a way to find if you're an introvert and extrovert. One way is by, observing your traits, and based on the things we just shared now, you can have an idea. The second one, you could do the personality assessment test, like Myers-Briggs, and it tells you how introverted or extroverted you are on that spectrum with percentages. So if anyone is interested to know, they say, oh, I don't know if I'm introvert or extrovert, maybe do that Myers-Briggs personality type test. So going back to my point, the third one is to encourage equal participation. So get everyone involved, maybe give everyone 2 minutes to speak in a meeting so everyone get a chance, stuff like that. And the last tip I would share with extroverts is to get comfortable with these silences or pauses, because introverts, they pause before maybe sharing the next point. And usually extroverts, they jump in because maybe they're not comfortable with that silence, and then they take over again. So maybe just to learn to be, when you're talking to an introvert, to have a slower pace, and when they pause, just wait, like, I don't know, a second. Just be comfortable with silences.
Well, silence, being able to do that is so important when you're negotiating. It's so powerful. You mentioned brainstorming doesn't work, and brainstorming, honestly, that's like my favorite part of business. I get very excited when people want to brainstorm with me. So can you share a little bit about that research? What is it saying?
Many research I've seen online recently about that. Yeah, it's probably not effective. I didn't go deeper into it. Maybe I can send you a few links afterwards. But the general idea is, in a brainstorming, there's so many ideas. There's maybe no equality. So again, maybe the extroverts will take over. Introverts are quiet. Then you're not hearing from the other people, or maybe there's a stronger personality in the room. And when there's stronger personality, we tend to maybe subconsciously start agreeing with that person. So it's, yeah, from these perspectives, maybe it's not an effective effective approach. But again, you never know. Different brainstorming techniques work with different people. Like for example, in your case, it works. So I totally believe, like, I don't like the black and white thinking. So I believe everything, yeah,
It's
there's
probably
no
on the
right or wrong.
spectrum. So as I'm listening to you speak, I'm thinking, because all those, those personality tests, I've done so many of them over the years. I have a psychology degree as an undergrad, so you can tell me who I need to be, and I'll fill that test that comes out. I actually did that recently with a friend of mine. She was interviewing for a job, and the manager really wanted her, and he actually told her that she failed the personality test. So when she called me and said that, I said, well, first of all, you can't fail a personality test.
Exactly.
So I said to her, who do they want you to be? What did your manager say? Like, give me some more information. And so he wanted her so badly that said he would let her redo it, because basically in talking to her, it sounded like, you know what, HR has a checklist and it's check, check, check. If they don't see it, they're not being very open-minded or taking other factors into consideration. You got to be able to check off the list. This is her score on the personality test. No. So anyway, she got a lot of good information from her manager, and then he allowed her to retake it. So we did it together one night. So she read out the questions. I'm like, okay, no, that's not the answer because it doesn't fit the profile. So she passed her personality test and is now loving her job. So anyway, so that's how I feel about
Wow,
personality
that's
tests. It's like very easily manipulated. But I do think that introversion, extroversion, it's sort of a spectrum like a lot of other traits, right?
exactly,
Be
yeah,
a little bit of both, but we put labels on people and put things in boxes so we can help, to your point. If we know that these tend to be your traits, this is how we can help you feel better about yourself and be successful, however you define success. So before I let you go, so
exactly.
thank you. That was great insight. Love it. I'm going to give you a random question that has nothing to do with quiet leadership.
Okay.
So the question is, if you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, famous or infamous, who would that person be and why?
Wow. As an introvert, you put me on the spot.
I know, maybe you don't want to have dinner at all. You prefer to, no, I don't know. I'm just
No, I'll try it. So, all right. So a person, and okay, let me think about it. I don't know what's coming to my mind. I don't know why. Just Gandhi. I don't know where
kidding.
that came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gandhi. Why? Maybe because he's an introvert, and he's actually like maybe a typical quiet leader. He's an inspiration because he managed to do so many things, although he's very humble, very quiet. And there's a quote he said, which I love. He said, "You can quietly, you can shake the world," or something like that. And that I
Wow.
find powerful. And that's what he did. He did so many things with his quiet trait.
I love that quote. And I think that the message really to everyone is we all have tremendous power within us.
Mm-hmm.
And either you know how to express it, tap into it or not. And that's part of self-awareness. So I love that quote. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they reach you best?
Sure. I'm all over social media, so any social media channel with my name, Faris Khalifeh. And my website is also fariskhalifeh.com.
Do you want to spell your last name for people in case they're
Yeah, sure.
Googling it right now?
Yeah, so Faris, Faris, and last name is Khalifeh, Khalifeh.
Perfect. Thank you.